Kanlaon volcano just erupted for the sixth time in 20 months, and scientists say the mountain is trapped in a cycle it cannot break. And what is happening right now beneath the most active volcano in the Philippine Visayas has volcanologists warning that the worst may still be ahead. Ashfall blankets 41 barangays across 6 cities and municipalities. A shock wave from the blast was felt more than 30 kilometers from the crater. And the data coming out of Kanlaon reveals a pattern that has repeated with terrifying precision since June 2024. Sulfur dioxide drops, pressure builds, the edifice swells. Then the mountain detonates. 11,556 tons of sulfur dioxide in a single day during this eruptive crisis. That is the highest emission ever recorded at Kanlaon since instruments were first installed. And here is what that actually means. Deep beneath the summit, magma has been intruding and pressurizing for nearly 2 years without exhausting itself, not winding down, not stabilizing, reloading. But here is what has volcanologists in complete alarm. Phillippines confirms that the eruption mechanism driving yesterday's explosion is identical to the one that triggered every major blast since June 2024. The volcanic gas pathways seal themselves. Pressure accumulates beneath the blocked conduit. The edifice inflates. And then the seal ruptures. The same cycle. The same pattern. 6 times now. And scientists cannot predict when the next seal will break, or whether the next rupture will be catastrophically larger than anything this volcano has produced in 124 years. Is Kanlaon's repeating cycle finally losing intensity? Or is this volcano building toward a magmatic eruption it has not produced since 1902? As of February 19, 2026, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology maintains Alert Level 2 over Mount Kanlaon, indicating a moderate level of volcanic unrest with the potential for sudden explosive eruptions. The numbers from yesterday's blast paint a picture of a volcano far from finished. At 4:38 p.m. local time, a moderately explosive eruption at the summit crater sent a dense dark gray plume 2,000 meters above the crater, drifting southwest under strong winds. Pyroclastic density currents descended the southern and southwestern upper slopes, traveling at least 2 kilometers down the southwest flank. An infrasound station 4 kilometers southeast of the crater registered a maximum pressure of 225 pascals. The shock wave was felt as a booming sound in La Castellana, Moises Padilla, Pontevedra, San Enrique, and Hinigaran, communities scattered more than 30 kilometers from the summit. Continuous ash emission followed the explosive phase for 40 minutes. Light to moderate ashfall blanketed 41 barangays across Pontevedra, La Carlota City, La Castellana, Hinigaran, Bago City, and Don Salvador Benedicto. Sulfurous fumes were reported in multiple barangays of La Carlota, Bago, and Moises Padilla. Ground deformation data confirms what scientists feared. Electronic tilt and GPS measurements show short-term inflation of the edifice beginning in late January 2026, preceding the eruption. Since June 3, 2024, when eruptive unrest began, Kanlaon has continuously degassed at an average rate of 2,823 tons of sulfur dioxide per day. The edifice has been inflating at low and fluctuating rates since 2022. The conduit sealed. The pressure built. The mountain. June 3, 2024, 6:51 p.m. local time. Kanlaon's summit vent explodes without significant seismic warning. An incandescent plume rockets 5,000 meters above the crater. Pyroclastic flows race 2 to 3 kilometers down the southeastern slopes. Ashfall reaches Bacolod, 85 kilometers away. Phillippines raises the alert from level 1 to level 2. The first eruption in 7 years. The crisis begins. By September, the volcano escalates beyond anything in its instrumental record. On September 10th, sulfur dioxide emissions hit 9,985 tons per day, the highest since 2009. The next day, 11,556 tons, the highest single-day measurement ever recorded at Kanlaon. Phillippines publicly warns of a possible first magmatic eruption since 1902. Then November brings an eerie quiet. Sulfur dioxide plummets to 1,669 tons per day. Seismic activity drops to 6 minor earthquakes. The silence is not recovery. It is pressurization. December 9, 2024, 3:03 p.m. The scowl breaks. Kanlaon detonates with a force that generates a shockwave audible across Negros. A plume rises 4,000 meters. Pyroclastic density currents descend the southeastern flanks. Ashfall reaches the islands of Panay, Guimaras, and Cebu. Alert level jumps to 3. Within hours, 87,000 people are ordered to evacuate. A state of calamity is declared across 57 cities and municipalities. 2025 brings no relief. April 8th, another explosive eruption, a 4,000-meter plume. Pyroclastic flows ignite vegetation and trigger wildfires near the crater. May 13th, another blast. October 24th, another. Each one following the same mechanism. Seal, pressure, swell, rupture. January 2026. Heat-sensitive cameras capture superheated gas emissions, invisible to the naked eye pouring from the crater at night. Phillippines Chief Science Research Specialist Ma. Antonio Bornes warns publicly that the decline in visible parameters does not mean the volcano's unrest is fading. Magma remains intruding beneath the edifice. A major eruption, she states, remains possible. February 19th, 2026, 4:38 p.m. The 6th moderate explosion in 20 months. The cycle repeats. 2 minutes of explosive fury. 2,000 meters of ash. Pyroclastic density currents reaching 2 kilometers southwest. 40 minutes of continuous ash emission. Ashfall across 41 barangays. And Phillippines confirms the mechanism is identical to every eruption before it. 20 months, 6 explosions. The pattern has not broken. Sulfur dioxide is the volcano's pulse. When magma rises from deep reservoirs toward the surface, dissolved gases escape through cracks and vents. The concentration of sulfur dioxide reveals how much fresh molten rock is actively degassing beneath the crater. Higher readings mean a larger, more energetic supply pushing upward. But Kanlaon has introduced a complication that makes it more dangerous than a volcano simply venting gas. Phillippines describes the mechanism in its February 19th eruption bulletin. The volcanic gas pathways become blocked. When the conduit seals, sulfur dioxide readings drop. On February 18th, the day before the eruption, emissions measured just 346 tons, compared to a long-term average since June 2024 of 2,823 tons per day. That drop was not a sign of calm. It was evidence of a closed system building pressure. And here is what that actually means. When gas pathways are open, the volcano vents continuously, and the risk of sudden explosion is lower. When those pathways scowl, pressure accumulates against the blockage. The edifice inflates as magma pushes against the sealed conduit. Eventually, the seal fails and the accumulated energy releases in a single explosive event. Said Antonio Bornes, Chief Science Research Specialist at Phillippines, addressed this pattern during a 55% January briefing. Despite fluctuations in monitoring parameters, the decline is not equivalent to lowered unrest. The volcanic gas emission is a reminder that magma remains under the volcano and it is preparing for a major eruption. Based on historical data from other volcanoes, the critical unknown is whether each cycle of sealing and rupture gradually exhausts the magma supply or whether it is incrementally clearing the pathway for something far larger. Kanlaon has erupted more than 40 times since 1819. Every eruption except one has been phreatic, steam-driven, involving no fresh magma at the surface. The exception was 1902, a Strombolian eruption that ejected incandescent cinders and lava. The sulfur dioxide readings during this current crisis, averaging 2,823 tons per day over 20 months, dwarf anything in the modern instrumental record. The volcano is behaving in ways it has not behaved in living memory. The health consequences spread with every eruption cycle. Ashfall triggers respiratory complaints across communities within 25 kilometers. Sulfur contamination poisons water sources. And across 23,000 hectares of sugarcane fields on Negros Island, acidic ash burns leaves, accelerates premature crop maturation, and threatens the sugar supply of an entire nation. The numbers represent families. More than 87,000 evacuated in a single night during the December 2024 crisis. 28,272 displaced after the April 2025 eruption. 45,526 affected across 32 barangays by the end of 2024. And now, after yesterday's explosion, fresh evacuations are underway in La Carlota City, where more than 30 families fled their homes within hours of the blast. Evacuees from Sitio Guantubdan in Barangay Araal were transferred to La Carlota South Elementary School 2. Residents of Kanlaon City and La Castellana within the 4 kilometers danger zone have been living in evacuation centers since the eruptive crisis began. Some have been displaced for months. Others have returned home only to be evacuated again when the next cycle hits. The uncertainty is its own form of devastation. No family can plan a harvest, enroll a child in school, or repair a roof when the mountain might erupt again next week or next month. Maria, a sugarcane worker from Barangay Sagang in La Castellana, has evacuated 3 times since December 2024. Each time she carries the same plastic bag containing her family's land title and her children's birth certificates. Each time she returns to find ash on her roof and sulfur in her water. Each time she wonders if the next eruption will be the one that makes return impossible. Children across the affected zones lose school days with every eruption. Classes were suspended in La Carlota, La Castellana, and Bago following yesterday's blast. Psychosocial support teams deployed by AmeriCares report that more than 500 children at evacuation centers showed signs of distress during the 2024 to 2025 displacement period. The cycle of evacuation and return, of normalcy shattered and tentatively rebuilt, leaves scars that no relief package can address. The economics cut to the bone. Negros Island produces the majority of the Philippines' sugarcane. Over 23,000 hectares of cane fields have been affected since the crisis began. Kanlaon City has lost 93.49 million pesos. Agricultural damage from the June 2024 eruption alone reached 150.96 million pesos. A price freeze was imposed across Negros Occidental to prevent hoarding. Water rationing was enforced in La Carlota and La Castellana after sulfur contamination rendered regular sources unsafe. Historical record haunts every scientist monitoring Kanlaon's current behavior. In 1996, a phreatic explosion killed 3 hikers at the summit without warning. 2 climbing groups were near the crater rim when the mountain ejected ash, stones, and superheated gas. 18 survivors were hospitalized. Belgian hiker Caroline Verling later described watching her companion struck by falling tephra moments after their guide assured them the rising smoke was ordinary. In 1902, Kanlaon produced its only confirmed magmatic eruption in recorded history. A Strombolian event ejected incandescent cinders, lapilli, and lava bombs, sending molten material flowing down the upper slopes. For 124 years since, every eruption has been phreatic. Steam, no fresh magma. Until now. The comparison reveals a disturbing reality. The sulfur dioxide readings since June 2024, averaging 2,823 tons per day, with peaks reaching 11,556 tons, indicate direct magmatic degassing at rates unprecedented in instrumental history. Phillippines has publicly acknowledged that the volcano may be approaching its first magmatic eruption since 1902. And here's the dimension that amplifies the danger. Unlike Mayan or Pinatubo, Kanlaon has never been studied in depth. Its age remains uncalculated. Its deep magmatic architecture is poorly understood. What the geological record does reveal is that the largest debris avalanche in Philippine history, 33 kilometers of volcanic material traveling southwest, originated from this mountain. The Global Volcanism Program at the Smithsonian Institution tracks Kanlaon's weekly bulletins. The Tokyo Volcanic Ash Advisory Center issues regular alerts to aviation. International monitoring bodies watch the same repeating pattern that Phillippines scientists watch from the observatory. On the campus of La Carlota City College, the consensus offers no reassurance. The cycle continues. The Global Volcanism Program at the Smithsonian Institution tracks Kanlaon's weekly bulletins. The Tokyo Volcanic Ash Advisory Center issues regular alerts to aviation. International monitoring bodies watch the same repeating pattern that Phillippines scientists watch from the observatory. On the campus of La Carlota City College, the consensus offers no reassurance. The cycle continues. The Philippine government maintains sustained crisis infrastructure across the Negros Island region. The Office of Civil Defense, directed by Regional Director Donato Acermeno III, coordinates response operations spanning Negros Occidental and Negros Oriental. Following yesterday's eruption, OCDNIR issued a stand-down order at 7 p.m. while instructing local government units to sustain preemptive evacuations within the 4 to 6 kilometers extended danger zone. Logistics are pre-positioned and extensive. OCDNIR warehouses hold 14,702 N95 face masks, 15,000 safety goggles, and 3 portable water filtration kits. The Department of Health Regional Office reports 1,974,000 additional face masks available. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has 223,608 family food packs, 10,549 ready-to-eat food packs, and over 17,000 non-food items on hand. Bureau of Fire Protection flushing teams and Philippine National Police units remain on standby. Local government units activated emergency protocols within minutes. San Carlos City deployed its emergency response team to Barangay Codcod. Kanlaon positioned rescue vehicles at pickup points in Barangays Pula and Masalog. La Carlota convened its DRRM Council for rapid damage assessment. Pontevedra activated its Emergency Operations Center and placed 20 barangays under close monitoring. Since 2024, a state of calamity has been declared across 57 cities and municipalities. Relief goods worth 148.97 million pesos were distributed after the December 2024 eruption alone. School suspensions hit communities with every eruption cycle. The logistics are stocked, but 20 months of repeating eruptions strain systems designed for singular events. Pontevedra and Hinigaran have already requested additional masks and goggles. The supply lines hold. The question is for how long? Scientists at Phillippines model possible trajectories for Kanlaon's ongoing eruptive cycle. Each scenario carries different implications for the 4,150 residents within the extended danger zone and the hundreds of thousands living on the volcano's slopes. Scenario 1 offers cautious hope. The current cycle of sealed conduit eruptions gradually weakens. Each successive blast releases incrementally less energy as the magma supply slowly cools and contracts at depth. Eruption intervals lengthen. Sulfur dioxide emissions decline toward baseline. The pattern breaks through exhaustion. Communities rebuild with decreasing interruption. Scenario 2 extends the status quo indefinitely. The seal pressurized rupture cycle continues for years or decades, matching the pattern Dr. Bornes referenced when she noted that other volcanoes have exhibited similar unrest for decades before a major event. Each eruption forces fresh evacuations, suspends classes, damages crops, and resets community recovery. The economic toll compounds across harvest seasons. Negros Island's sugar industry absorbs losses that ripple through national food supply chains. Scenario 3 represents the nightmare. One sealing cycle accumulates pressure beyond anything the previous ruptures released. The conduit clears completely. Fresh magma reaches the surface for the first time since 1902. A full magmatic eruption sends pyroclastic flows racing down Kanlaon's flanks at speeds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour. The 33 km debris avalanche scar on the southwest flank proves the mountain is capable of catastrophic mass movement. Anyone within the 6 kilometers danger zone who is not evacuated dies. A compounding threat accompanies every scenario. Accumulated ash from 20 months of eruptions sits on Kanlaon slopes waiting for the monsoon. When heavy rains arrive, lahars will follow river channels downstream into communities far beyond the permanent danger zone. Lahar risk persists for years after eruption activity subsides. Population density amplifies the stakes. Over 300,000 hectares of Negros Occidental are cultivated for sugarcane. More than 21,000 planters depend on the crop. The communities surrounding Kanlaon are not remote highland villages. They are dense agricultural towns embedded in the economic infrastructure of an entire island. 20 months, 6 explosions, 11,556 tons of sulfur dioxide in a single day, the highest ever recorded at this volcano. 87,000 people evacuated in a single night. A state of calamity across 57 cities and municipalities. Ashfall reaching islands hundreds of kilometers away. And a deep magmatic system that seals, pressurizes, swells, and ruptures in a cycle that Phillippines confirms has not changed since it began. In evacuation shelters across Negros, families wake to the same question that closed their eyes the night before. Maria checks her phone for Phillippines updates before dawn. Children ask when they can go home. Sugarcane farmers calculate losses on harvests they cannot reach. Evacuees at the Carlotta South Elementary School too settle onto gymnasium floors for another night of sulfur-tinged air. At the Kanlaon Volcano Observatory on the campus of La Carlotta City College, scientists watch data streams that never stop. Seismographs trace every tremor. Spectrometers measure every ton of sulfur escaping the crater. Tiltmeters track every millimeter of ground swelling. Heat-sensitive cameras capture the superheated gas, emissions invisible to human eyes that pour from the summit after dark. The surveillance never sleeps. But surveillance cannot control what the mountain decides to do next. The impossible choice that has defined life on Kanlaon slopes for generations remains unchanged. The same volcanic soil that threatens devastation also grows the sugarcane that sustains the island's economy. Farmers cannot relocate to safer ground because safer ground does not produce the yields that feed their families and fuel the nation's sugar supply. Economic survival and physical survival share the same coordinates. The geography permits no compromise. Yet communities endure. They have rebuilt after more than 40 eruptions across 2 centuries. They will rebuild again if given the chance. The resilience is not ignorance of danger. It is clear-eyed acceptance that this mountain is home despite everything it threatens to take. whether Kanlaon's repeating cycle gradually exhausts itself or clears the pathway for the first magmatic eruption in 124 years remains unknown. The volcano operates on geological time, indifferent to human calendars, evacuation orders, and the families whose lives are interrupted every time the seal breaks. Science watches. Families wait. The mountain decides. Above the central Visayas tonight, the highest peak on Negros Island vents a pale plume into the darkness. Sulfur dioxide drifts southwest across fields of sugarcane. The same silhouette that anchors a national park and draws climbers from around the world now serves as a warning to the hundreds of thousands who live in its shadow. The eruption continues. The cycle has not broken, and the people of Negros wait for a mountain that keeps its own time.